You can become a full-time Pilates instructor in 12 months, even if you work a 9 to 5, even if you haven't been doing it that long. I did it, I've seen lots of other people do it, and now I'm going to show you the exact roadmap of how you can be working full-time as a Pilates instructor in 12 months. Most people think it takes years to become a Pilates instructor, or that you have to have had some background in dancing or been doing Pilates for years. It doesn't. The education, you can start from zero, and if you put in the work, you can be qualified and teaching in 6 months. The education itself takes about 6 months, and then to build up your clients and your studios takes about another 6 months, so that you can find enough cover work going on to your permanent classes and confidence going all the way up to full-time. Not hype, not gatekeeping, being a clear 12-month step-by-step plan. In this video, I'm giving you the exact timeline, step-by-step, from finding your education to your first paid class to quitting your job safely. So step one of your journey is getting your education. And there are so many educations out there that your step one is actually finding the right education for you. If you're starting from zero, you're going to need to do your MAT level 3 qualification. This can take about 3 months, and you can do it all over England. There are even courses that you can do entirely online, which I've got another video about, so I will link that below and you can look into your educations. On your MAT educations, you're going to learn your anatomy basics, your cueing basics, your setup, your injuries, your class structure, and your confidence in actually teaching another human. The second 3 months is where you're going to do your reformer. If you want to work full time, you really need to have the reformer. The amount of work density you're going to get is a lot more than MAT. So MAT classes, there's often only going to be 1 or 2 hours of work in the morning and in the evening, whereas reformer, you can have up to 5 or 6 hours in a row. This is to do with studio capacity. If you think about it, you can have unlimited people in a MAT studio. Maybe not unlimited, but as many as it will fit. Most studios, you can have at least 20 to 30. Whereas in a reformer studio, you can only fit about 10. Some are doing 20 now, but either way, it is so popular that each person needs their own reformer, and the studios, to give everyone the reformer classes, is putting so many classes back to back. The other reason you need reformer to go full time is that if something happens to you, say you get injured or you're feeling a little bit sick, you can still teach reformer, whereas MAT is a lot harder. Secondly, with reformer, you are generally going to find more high hourly pay. It's not the case always, but it is a trend I've seen. Not to mention there's more classes available, more people demanding reformer, and it's a bit more of an entry point for the bigger studios because you've got less competition around you. I can tell you from being in the industry that studios are dying for reformer instructors. They need you. So if you've got the reformer and you're passionate about it and you teach well, the 1 year experience that a lot of studios say is not going to be as big of a picking point as it would with MAT. So your action plan here, your first month, you can start this now. You're going to research the education that fits you well. You can consider things like price, location, attendance, hours, etc. I've got a whole other video on that, so you can just check that out. And then at the end of that month, I want you to enroll on the course. Months 1 to 3, you're going to be doing your education, and then months 3 to 6, the reformer education. You don't have to take the same MAT as reformer. So if you've done, for example, like your stop MAT, you do not have to do stop reformer. However, a lot of studios will bundle them together, so you'll save a lot of money if you do both together. Step 2. You are going to build your foundations while you study. Start to act like an instructor before you actually become one. So even while you're studying for your MAT, start reaching out to studios around you. You can ask them what qualifications they require. Do they take on trainees? Maybe they will let you shadow, or maybe they offer internal training. I promise you, by the time you finish your course, if you've built up that relationship, there will be work there for you at the end. You're also going to start teaching your friends and family. While a lot of teaching Pilates comes down to knowledge and understanding of the body, a huge part of it is presenting. And just like public speaking or even talking to a camera, which I'm trying to get better at right now, it takes practice. The only way to get better is by doing it, not by studying it. I watched a million videos on YouTube how to speak better on the camera. The only way I'm actually going to get better is by doing it. So it is very similar when you're faced with a group of people to be able to present things without stumbling over your words. And already now, start to build up your digital portfolio. I always say to people that Instagram is like the LinkedIn of Pilates. I've had work offers just through Instagram. It is where people are looking for instructors. I've applied to work through other mediums such as Facebook or LinkedIn, and there are certain other platforms. but where they've reached out to me for work has always been Instagram. You do not have to have an account where you're presenting yourself as this fully experienced instructor. Just document your journey, offer teaching tips. If you've been teaching your friends and family, you can show what you did. And this just shows any studio that you are invested in this journey. It shows them a little sneak peek of you as a person, because personality is actually a very important aspect of this career. And it also kind of shows them your teaching style, because even if you're not teaching a full class, they can see if you are structured, if you are a little bit more of a one-on-one person, things like that. So just start creating that digital portfolio on Instagram. Your goal isn't necessarily to build a massive following here, it's just to have that portfolio. Now, already after you've completed your mat, you can start teaching mat. Going on to step 3, you're going to start your cover teaching. As soon as you've completed your mat, try to start covering for other studios. It's going to mean you're going to have to travel a little bit and be a little bit flexible with your timings. Like anything, you are going to have to make compromises here. So spending time with your friends every weekend just isn't going to be on the cards for the moment. You need to prioritize getting that practice in. I promise it will pay off at the end, okay? But if a studio has last minute cover, take it. The odds of them giving you work at the end of it are so much higher if you are willing to take the cover, even more if the clients like you. But they can't know if the clients like you if you're not teaching the cover there. All the studios I work at, I started off doing cover before I got permanent classes. This also works for you as an instructor to know if you actually like the studio. I will say at the start of your teaching journey, beggars can't be choosers. And while there is a lot of work, I would just take what is there. While I'm not encouraging you to kind of play studios that you hate, it is quite normal for quite a high sort of staff mobility and turnover in this industry. A lot of people who are doing it are also doing it as another job. So if you are fully committed to Pilates instead of working part-time as an actor or dancer or something else on the side, it is actually going to work strongly in your favor. But it also means that if after 6 months of doing a permanent class, you then considerately say that it's not for you anymore, it's not going to be a massive deal. It's not going to tarnish your reputation in the industry. It is quite common. Parentheses here is that so long as you don't make a habit of doing that at every studio you work at. So getting covers is your fastest route to getting full-time work. It is low commitment, high opportunity. Studios always need it. You get exposure and you improve fast. How you're going to get these covers is from the studios you've messaged in step 2. You can now say, look, I'm qualified. Have you got any cover for me? Most likely they are going to say yes. You can also now start applying to places like Pure Gym, Jet, Energy. They're also often quite in demand for group fitness instructors. And how you're going to balance this with your 9 to 5, because of course you've still got to go to work. It is going to be a quite tiring few months of your life, but again, I promise you it's going to be worth it. Say to yourself, how much can I do? Commit to 1 or 2 evenings a week and 1 weekend day. You do need a chance to recover in between or you will burn out. So give yourself your Saturday or give yourself your Sunday, and don't try and teach every night, but tell yourself, I'm going to commit to try and teaching cover 2 nights a week and 1 weekend day, for example. Maybe you want to do 3 evenings a week. And then you've already started your Instagram portfolio, so you're just going to start adding that. If you get a good review, load it up immediately. And if you do it on stories, highlight it. You can also do it as a post. Like I said, we're not trying to get a massive Instagram following right now. If you're good at that and want to go for it, do it, of course. But even if you've got like 20 followers, it's absolutely fine. You're just creating that bio right now. But in your portfolio now, you can start to include things like you teaching classes, if that's something that your studio and your group is comfortable with. Class setup, so maybe just you doing your flow on the mat, maybe even a time lapse if, again, your studio is comfortable with it. And then little reflections like before and after of teaching life. This is going to build trust with studios. And even if your following is low, studios do quite like people with online presences. It often gives them something to share on their own Instagram. It also shows that you're sort of immersed in this industry. And also there is potential as extra marketing for them in the long run. So if you do kind of take off, it works really well for them. And then step 4, start saying yes to the permanent classes. The permanent slots are going to start to come, I promise, so long as you're sort of diversified with all your mat work. The more mat studios you reach out to and try and cover for, the more you increase your odds. This is going to start to offer you some consistent income for Pilates. And if you've got regular students, you're actually going to start getting better at skill growth as well. So instead of having to focus all of your cueing on the setup and just literally understanding what we're doing, we can start to focus on more where we're engaging and actually encourage your students to find their lats or find their serratus or find their TA, rather than just, trying to just get everyone sometimes to lay on the floor on their backs can be a mission where you're just looking at each other. So long as they fit in your schedule, don't be too picky at this stage. You are going to get so much growth, and the more you're working, the more you're going to get offered work. It's just a rule of the universe. FYI, I always hear people saying about how there's no work, how there's a job crisis, and yet everyone I speak to in work is like flooded with too much work. So it just goes to kind of prove you have to be in the industry to get offered the work. People aren't offering it to the ones who don't have work. I have noticed there are two types of people. There are the ones who can kind of do their sprints. This is me. I'm a good sprinter in terms of work. But to be honest, I've noticed most people can't do this. When I first went self-employed, I think I'd been working about 6 months without a single day off and continued that for another 3 or 4 months. I had a couple of little breaks here and there, but honestly, it is not for everyone. You can take it a little bit more easing into it. So you do not have to say yes straight away to everything. But obviously, if you want to be full-time in 12 months, you are going to have to make some compromises. So you are going to have to live with a 6-day work week for a while. But leave yourself open for covers for a little bit. We're going to go on to that transition from part-time to full-time in a moment. Bear in mind with Matt, whilst I would encourage travel, I wouldn't encourage silly travel. We are looking at trying to build a little bit of an income here. So if you have to travel an hour and a half across the city to teach one mat class, you're probably better off sticking with that one as a cover for the meantime. And if they do offer you a permanent slot, you can say, oh, I can do it until you find someone permanent, but maybe don't take it on as permanent, because that's not going to be sustainable once you're qualified in reformer and you're being offered 5 or 6 hours of permanent work instead. And in terms, we have got to think about the financial side of this. It is not conducive to be doing 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. You want that stacked work. Okay, so now we're qualified in reformer. We are at month 6. So step 5. You're qualified in reformer, you've been doing your mat, you've been earning a little bit of income, and now we're going to try and start getting some reformer classes. So you're going to follow that same process of contacting studios, asking them if you can shadow, cover, and if you're lucky enough, some of your mat studios will also have reformer. If they don't worry, there are a lot more studios looking for reformer teachers than there are for mat. So now you're going to start looking for work and cover in reformer. Now, a few places you can do this. LinkedIn is where your more corporate studios are going to be. So this is how I applied for Third Space. It is also Gymbox, even though they don't have reformer, but Gymbox, places like that, have it on there. And as silly as this sounds, as soon as you start looking for these jobs, the Instagram algorithm is pretty smart. Whenever I've started applying for work at studios, suddenly I start getting ads. And this is the other benefit of having your Instagram portfolio. Instagram specifically, it does have a more sort of overarching understanding of what your profile is and how to target you. So put in your bio that you are newly qualified Pilates instructor, and Instagram can see that and it will start targeting the ads. And as you're applying for the jobs, it will start advertising targeted ads to you. Like the amount of level out ads I got when I was applying for Third Space, I get the ads on Instagram. So if you do spend your time online, you will get offered the work. But other places to look are actually on Facebook. So there's a couple of groups, Facebook groups, cover groups, and then there's Pilates in London and beyond. I'll link them down in the description. You can have a look at those. There are often quite regular posts of independent studios that are either opening soon or need work. You can contact them. And the other thing you can do is just post your education, your training, and that you're looking for cover or permanent work. Now, the beauty of reformer is usually you're going to have about 3 hours of work or more. So when it comes to traveling, you can afford to travel a little bit further for that work. So if I'm teaching mat on a permanent basis, I don't really want to be traveling more than 30 or 40 minutes for 2 classes back to back. Yeah, so I wouldn't personally travel for a single class unless it was literally next door and I was like, okay, whatever. Because the fun of Mat is you do actually get to join in, whereas Reformer you don't. So that trade-off I'm willing to do, but given that this is your full-time job, the bulk of your schedule needs to be 3 to 4 hours grouped together, especially in the beginning where the rates for Reformer and Mat sometimes can differ. So your starting rate for Mat can be as low as 25, but the starting rate for Reformer is about 35. That's here in London. So if you can get your 3 hours back to back, you can get £105 for 3 hours of work, whereas you're looking maybe at 50 for a double Mat class. How much do you want to earn? Step 6 is the actual transitioning away from your 9 to 5. Now this can happen anywhere between sort of six months to the 10-month period. It depends on a couple of things. Number one, are you able at your 9 to 5 to go down to part-time? So maybe instead of 5 days a week, they will actually let you work 3 days a week. If that's the case, that's a pretty safe route to go down. It is the route I would personally take and that I did take. And then you can start to fill your days with either cover to start or permanent classes as soon as they're offered. Bearing in mind, the weekday daytime classes are going to be your hardest slots to fill. So I wouldn't bank on necessarily filling like a Thursday afternoon from 12 until 3, but you are going to need the energy to recover. You can take, for example, a 7 until 10 and then a 5 until 8. I wouldn't say this is the ideal schedule for the rest of your life, but is the reality of where you might have to start. Okay, and then the second route, now whether this is from part-time or from full-time, it depends a little bit on your notice period, is that you're going to use your notice period to build up the cover and the permanent classes. Now you can either do this at the studios you've been covering at, but also be on the lookout for new studios opening. This was a really helpful thing for me, is that one of my studios I'm working at was opening just at the end of my notice period. So it made a really sensible transition. And they gave me 3 blocks of work. Plus I already had 3 other blocks of work that I was doing around my part-time. So by the time I quit, the 6 blocks was enough to cover all my bills. And then since then, I've increased my hourly rate. I've got more studios, more kind of condensed days, and I'm earning a lot more than where I started. Another thing I'd recommend in this transition period is do try to save the income of your now cover classes or permanent classes as a 2 to 3 month safety net, just in case once you've handed in your notice and there's no going back, just to give you that moment of you might be able to scrape it by, but it just takes that pressure off. I think as anyone seen Friends, Rachel calls it the fear. Once you're in your notice period, you'd be surprised how productive you're going to be at getting that work once you actually need it. Right before you hand in your notice, the things you need to do, you need to know your minimum expenses to live. So this is your rent, this is your bills, this is food, everything like that. Do the class math. So I am giving a lot of figures here based on my experience in London. However, you might be somewhere else. So say the rate is lower or higher, you need to figure out how many classes a week you need to teach to make that amount. And the formula I use for calculating my monthly income is how many hours times the rate. So work out the weekly, times it by 52, so 52 weeks of the year, and then divide that by 11 to account for days off. And then the other consideration you're going to need to take in is your travel time. This is especially important if you're teaching the morning classes, because whilst income matters, so does your mental health. And if you're teaching a 6 a.m. class on the other side of London that relies on you getting the first mode of transport, this was way too much stress for me to deal with. I can do it as a cover, but I would always have to take Ubers. So I always counted on taking the Uber. It was too much stress. It would keep me up at night. What if I miss that tube? What if the tube is 10 minutes late and then I'm late for my class? So when you're taking permanent, factor your travel in. I know giving in your notice is scary. Everyone feels fear. It is completely normal. But this is an industry that is growing, especially with things like AI, post-COVID. People are being more conscious of their health and people are tired of digitalization of everything. I mean, I think I saw the statistic about yoga instructors. being one of the industries who are safe, Pilates is kind of under that umbrella, but even more so with the reformer, because there is such a demand for it right now because of the class capacity. It is ever growing, it's getting more and more accessible to people, and there is such a need for instructors across all studios. That has been the biggest obstacle, is the lack of good instructors. But I'm trusting that you're going to be a good instructor, so you don't need to worry about that. Scarcity mindset will keep you completely stuck where you are. If you think that there's no work, then you're not going to find the work. You're not going to be looking for it if you don't think it's there. I promise you, it is there. Like, if you're struggling, feel free to DM me on Instagram. I'm sure I know a studio that has got upcoming work. And then your final step is building your career stability. Now, most likely you are working as a freelance or self-employed instructor. This means that there is essentially no work safety. Like, a studio can tell you from one day to the next, you're not working for us anymore. I don't want to freak you out. It is not normal that that would happen. The only cases where I've seen that happen is where the instructor has kind of been fired. It's not been like, oh, we don't have the budget. You might have 1 or 2 classes cut. If you are working the off-peak times, then they might move around your classes. That's the only thing to bear in mind. But at the start, you're going to be going more for your peak time slots. So what's going to make you stay full-time? You need to network with other instructors. This doesn't have to look like going to sort of cocktail evenings or dinners where you physically network, as in networking events. This is just staying in touch with your colleagues, showing up to the staff events, going to other people's classes, just having a chat with them, creating a bit of an online community with yourself as well, for you to have that support network, knowing that there's other people getting up at 5 a.m. for work, which you are going to have to do. Sorry, but it's just the truth. You're either going to have to pick the morning or the evening. So it's either waking up at 5 or not getting home from work until like 9 or 10. So knowing that that is kind of the norm, and feeling other people around you doing that, where your previous network or your previous colleagues, your friends, your family are all still going to be in their 9 to 5. Sometimes it can be a little bit grass is greener if you don't have that support network around you. Keep in touch with your managers, keep in touch with the studios. Are they offering CPDs? Are they offering courses? Are they doing events? Stay in touch, offer feedback to the managers of things that you want help with. Obviously, don't sort of storm in with loads of improvements for the studio, but if a lot of clients have been feeding back about something, then feed that back to the managers. Make sure you do try and keep a day a week free for admin. Don't let that all pile up. I am just doing 4 working days a week with 3 admin and social media days a week. Everyone's journey is a little bit different, but most instructors I know need to keep at least 1 or 2 days free a week. And then just build on your education. So education is never ending in Pilates, not only because the research keeps coming out, that is something you have to stay on top of yourself. Even not through official educations, you can still be reading up online, watching YouTube videos, whatever it takes. Stay in touch with the industry. But then doing CPDs, it's one way for you to grow, is to stay stable as well, especially if you start to specialize more in things that you're interested in. So maybe you are particularly interested in equipment, or maybe you prefer fitness types of Pilates and want to do some courses in TRX, or maybe you want to work with sports. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. Just go on those educations. So budget for it in your income, and then just stay consistent on your social portfolio. Again, it's not necessarily about growing millions of followers. While that is kind of cool and you would get a lot of work opportunities and stability about it, it is just so that people know you're active and what you're doing. It also works as a little bit of a way to archive all of your reviews. So that's what I do. Every time I get a written review online, I will just screenshot it, post it up to Instagram, and then just save it into the highlights, so that if people ask for that, I can just send them there. And then the other thing you can do is also start to add in one-on-one clients. Now, I will make a separate video about this in the future, like one-on-one versus group. Group is definitely going to be your more sustainable entrance to the industry. You just get so much more contact with physical bodies, and this is where you're going to kind of practice. Some people might just like your teaching style, or like you as a person, or as friends, or maybe you've got previous experience in something else that lends well. And then you can start adding the one-on-one clients. And that is a source of extra income, extra experience for you as well. And it's a little bit more flexible in terms of what you can teach. Just a little caveat about if you do want to go down the one-on-one route, be careful how you market it. Different studios will have different policies. Some are okay with you mentioning it. Some are not okay with you mentioning it. It sort of works a little bit differently studio to studio. So that's something for another video, but just be mindful of, if that's part of your strategy, that you can't just sort of take all the clients from the studios you're working at into the one-on-one setting. So to summarize your 12-month plan, you've got months 0 to 6 is doing your education. Starting at around month 2, you're already building up your teaching skills, getting out there, working on bodies, and even getting some income from mat on months 0 to 6. Month 6 to 9 is where you're hardcore, going balls to the walls with your cover. And at month sort of 7, 8, 9 is where you're going to start to be offered those permanent shifts. And then months 10 to 12 is where you're making this transition to full time. So you're getting those permanent shifts, you're transitioning out of your old job, and then by month 12, there you are. You are a full-time Pilates instructor. So if you enjoyed this video, if you're at month 0 right now, go straight to this video here, which is going to tell you how to choose your education. And if you're a little bit further along in your journey, let me know how it's going. Let me know which month you're on, and let's connect on Instagram.